It's Skinny Joseph, and I'm back for another episode of the Freedom Train podcast series with the homie Patrick Irvin. What's going down? Yeah, more gang signs right back in y'all face. Yeah. Hey man, back here for another episode. Mental Health Awareness Month. It is August, our Mental Health Awareness Month. Every August, we're gonna bring you information, updates, stories, conversations surrounding mental health because we want to be a part of furthering the conversation, but also being a part of making it socially acceptable, just regularly acceptable for Black people to seek mental health care. So here it is going down. And remember that we are brought to you by PAX Inc. PACTSINC.org is the website. Make sure you go check out the website for all the information that they have on there. You become a part of the organization. You can support the organization through various ways. And one of the main ones is the Amazon Smile program. So go to AmazonSmile.com. And when you go to AmazonSmile.com, you can register for whatever nonprofit organization that you want to support. And when you do that, bam, you register and then you just go home, go buy stuff. And when you buy stuff, a portion of their proceeds will go to an organization like PAX Inc. So AmazonSmile.com, make sure you support PACTSINC and go to the website, PACTSINC.org. Make sure you check out our Freedom Train website while you're online as well, www.freedomtrainradio.com. And check me out on OnlyFans at onlyfans.com/Good Strokes. There you go.
Good strokes.
Good strokes. Good strokes. Yeah. I said I got that. What you need. Baby, don't you run from me. I got that. What you need. Don't you. I hurt my knee. And I ain't got no stroke no more. We're going on tour. Wherever you need us, wherever we're going down, we're going on tour. Hey, man, I'm MCing, he DJing. So, man, let's go ahead and dive right up into this, what we're talking about this week. So, we've been paying attention to the landscape. You know, a couple shows ago, we talked about what was going on at the Olympics with Coach. We've talked about Veronica at the Olympics, and we talked about mental health at the Olympics a bit. We've skimmed on it. We talked about Sha'Carri Richardson and things. But today, we're going to go more in depth on the situation that happened with Sha'Carri Richardson and look at it from a mental health standpoint. We're going to look at what's going on with Simone Biles or what happened with Simone Biles from a mental health standpoint, as well as Naomi Osaka from a mental health standpoint, because these are three ladies who have been in the media lately and have been scorned for taking care of their mental health or for trying their best to cope with mental health. So we're going to start with the story surrounding Sha'Carri Richardson. So like we talked about in our previous show, make sure you go check it out. Go to our website, www.freedomtrainradio.com and all your favorite podcast platforms to check us out, right? So we talked about her and why she missed the Olympics. She missed the Olympics because she had a positive marijuana test, which basically disqualified her from being able to compete in the Olympics. And one of the things, well, at first everybody was just like, well, she smoked weed. And then we found out that she was using the weed to help cope with the loss of her biological mother. And then we find out more details of how the whole situation played out. And, you know, to reiterate what we said last time, we ain't mad at her. We ain't got no beef with what she did. Would we have want to see her competing? Yes. Now, we're not mad at the Olympics either, because the Olympics have rules. She took accountability for it. The Olympics have rules. But like we said, we're not mad at her. And we do understand why she did it. That's why we're not mad at her. And we wish her the best in the upcoming meets. But did you know that she learned that her mother died during an interview? So like a reporter is the one who told her that her biological mother had passed.
Mm-hmm.
And this is within days when she has to compete and qualify and all these things here. And she's just thinking she's going for a regular interview, and it's like somebody complete strangers. Like she's saying, I was just thinking it would be a normal interview. But to hear that information coming from a complete stranger, it was definitely triggering. It was definitely nerve shocking. She said she used marijuana to deal with distress. I know I can't hide myself, so in some type of way I was trying to hide my pain. That's a quote from her. So when you hear something like that, what are thoughts that go through your mind when, like, God damn, like you learned about the passing of your mother through a reporter? Like, what type of person is that?
When I first heard about it, I thought it was, because I heard about that when I heard about the whole situation, or I read about that when I read about the whole situation, which is why I always was kind of like, it's understandable. People cope with stress and pain in different ways. It wouldn't be fair for me to say that she should have did this or shouldn't have done that, because everybody's going to do what they're going to do in those situations. And to find out about the death of anybody, that's a relative of yours, regardless of how close they may or may not be, from a total stranger, is kind of shocking.
Right. But I don't care how close people are to their parents or how distant they are to their parents. When you find out that your biological parent has passed, you're going to be triggered. You're going to have sorrow. You're going to have pain. You're not going to be good.
So I looked at it, we talk about all the time the mental health of people. And one of the things we've been talking about of late is the mental health of celebrity figures and athletes. And how their mental health is kind of thrown under the bus of entertainment and enjoyment to the masses.
Right.
And so that for me was where the Sha'Carri Richardson thing settled in at, right along with damn near every other case of Black mental health involving a celebrity or a highly popular athlete. So in the way my mind was thinking about it was the same way we talk about the deaths and stuff. Sha'Carri Richardson went through a traumatic experience of finding out that her mother, her biological mom, had passed from a stranger during an interview. That's a traumatic experience. That's a traumatic event. And she dealt with it the way she dealt with it. And instead of being able to accept consequences or accept what happened, the fallout and all, we seem determined to force her to relive it over and over and over again because we wanted to see her compete in the Olympics.
Right. More than anything else. It was just because people fell in love with her. So they say so. They want to see her compete.
Right. And that's the selfish nature of it. And that speaks to a level of mental health, a community-wide mental health issue, where nobody was really thinking about what she was going through. As we kept talking about how messed up it was that she wasn't going to the Olympics, and we kept talking about how we wanted to see her compete and how we wanted this and we wanted that and I wanted this and you wanted that, and very rarely did you hear anybody say, well, what does she want to do?
Right. Because like I said, people were more upset and offended than she was. I'm sure she was greatly hurt, but I'm sure she was more hurt by the loss of her mother than she was by not being able to compete in the Olympics. And of course it's big for her, but that's your mother. And like we keep saying, in the fashion that she found out that her mother passed, that's not cool. Like whoever that reporter is, god damn, you couldn't be more tactful. You couldn't, like, find a different way to get the message across, or find somebody else or whatever. But like, that's not how you do that. Then, you know, like I said, I'm not mad at her for using weed to cope. Do I wish she would have had better tools at her disposal to help her cope? Yes. But I'm not mad at her. I'm not mad at all, because her overall mental health is more important than any of that. And more important than anything, whether you want to see her compete or not. If she never ever runs again, I'm cool as long as her mental health is together. If she runs and wins every race, I'm cool as long as her mental health is together. But her mental health should not be sacrificed, like you said, for people's entertainment, for people's joy. Like we got to get over ourselves. Like, you got to get over yourselves. Like, you can't be so caught up in seeing somebody win and do what you like to see, that just, hey, I'm mad that she ain't competing because the U.S. need her and I need to see her. Hey, she needs time to make sure her mental health is right.
Absolutely.
That's the utmost importance for her.
And we see the same thing when we talk about Simone Biles and what happened to her, right? Like, Simone Biles walked out of the team competition this Olympics, and everybody lost their shit. They started attacking. They started calling her a quitter. People were saying she wasn't really that hurt that bad. Other people was like, man, we're not going to get to see her get another team gold medal. People were saying all kinds of things. And then you had other people using her as an example to make a bigger point. Some of those points good. Some of those points not so good. But she became a lightning rod. And in the middle of all of that, like we talked about before, nobody was really talking about the fact that she was the last competing member of the Larry Nassar victim ring. She's the sole competing member that was still competing. And out of her own mouth, the only reason she was still competing was so that a victim of his would still be competing to continue the discussion about sexual abuse and assault in the Olympics. On top of all of that, she's having to go back through the Olympic training facility, the U.S. training facilities. And you got to think, like, she's re-experiencing trauma. Every time any of those gymnasts walk into that facility where they were traumatized, they have to re-experience it. So she has that sort of mental abuse as she's training and gearing up. She's going back through the emotions, and then she gets to Tokyo. And after everything that's happened with Larry Nassar, with COVID, with this, with that, with all of that, not to mention she's still a Black woman in America who is pretty soon really going to have to come to grips with that more so than she already has, because you're not a jumping or flipping Negro no more. You're just a regular Negro. So like the mental stress that was there that would cause her to, that she said out of her own mouth, had her to the point where she was just like, I'm not in a good mental space to compete. I'm going to hurt myself and my team if I do.
And I'm gonna go more into that, but because it gets deep, because people really, until you read the information and really go into what's going on with Simone Biles, you don't get it. And so this was happening with Simone Biles. You have to understand gymnastics and understand the mental health aspect that surrounds gymnastics. But before we go deep into that, what's amazing for these two is, like, these two women are like presented as polar opposites. And I say presented because I don't know either one of them personally. So they could be just alike. but the appearance is one like Simone Biles is America, appearance wise, America adores her.
Mm-hmm.
Sha'Carri Richardson, appearance wise, Black folk adore her. And so you have these two women who have these appearances. They're exceptional at what they do. They're expected to be exceptional at what they do. They're expected to be exceptional, and they're expected to be perfect and flawless in every aspect of their life, while at the same time telling people that you're not perfect and it's okay to make mistakes, except for them, because they're expected to be perfect, because the fate of the nation relies on these women being perfect. Because, if America don't win these events, then we ain't nothing. And it's like their mental health should not be sacrificed for that, right? These two women were the face of the Olympics for America. Let's just be real. Simone Biles and Sha'Carri Richardson were the faces of American Olympics. There were no other competitors in the Olympics for the United States who were more popular than these two women. And so they're dealing with all of that, just the Olympic side, dealing with all of that, plus everything else that's going on in their lives. Like you say, Simone Biles is not only dealing with the pressure, like if Simone Biles doesn't compete, nobody expects the United States to win. If Simone Biles doesn't have the greatest showing, nobody expects the United States to win. She is the single reason why they expect the United States to win in gymnastics, because of her. They don't trust nobody else but her. So with Sha'Carri the pressure wasn't on her to that extent, because this was her first Olympics. But because she had been winning all these races, everybody made her the favorite, and everybody in the United States especially expected her to beat Elaine Thompson and Shelly Ann Fraser-Price. And they expected her to come in first place. And so you're dealing with all that. So you basically got Simone Biles carrying the whole Olympic gymnastic team on her back, and people trying to put the track and field team, or at least the 100 and the 4x100 team, and maybe the 200 on Sha'Carri Richardson's back. So they dealing with all that, plus real life. Oh yeah, I forgot. I'm an insensitive reporter, and I'm gonna tell you that your mother's died, right? And then with Simone Biles, so it's something called the twisties. So they have gymnastic terms, and they kind of break down these terms. So it's the twisties, bailing, balking, and head cases. And so let me read some of this to you. It says, bailing is when you pop out of a skill in the middle of it before you've done the whole thing, like on a single flip instead of a double. Balking is when you hesitate or stop doing the skill before it's really begun, especially dangerous on backward flips, because often the momentum is not stopped but slowed, and can make you crash onto your neck or head. A mental block and the head case, and head cases could be twisties as well. But a mental block is when one skill becomes a fixation and you can't make yourself do it, even if it was relatively easy. A head case, which is almost a slur in gymnastics, is a talented gymnast who melts down the competition. And so they say Simone Biles had the twisties, and the twisties is basically when a gymnast is doing all those flips and twists. So you're doing flips and twists at the same time in the air. And they said Simone Biles had great, what they call air sense. And air sense is basically, I'm flipping and twisting in the air at the same time. And I can't really see what's going on, but I can sense where the ground is, and I can sense where my body is and be able to land. So one of the coaches was saying Simone Biles had some of the best air sense she's ever seen. Say you'll be in the gym, see all the other girls just busting themselves, just falling on their necks and heads, and Simone Biles landing on her feet. But come the twisties, she'll be in the middle of a twist, and her air sense is off, and that's frightening, and you can come down and hurt yourself. So with her having the twisties and the mental block and all those things going on, she was right when she said she was putting herself and her team in danger. She was literally putting her life in danger. Doing those flips and twists in the air that's death defying. And if you do it wrong, and if your mental orientation is off, you can fall on your neck, fall on your head and kill yourself or severely injure yourself. And so these are things that she's going through. So people are like, well, she just quit and she's just doing this, she's doing that. No, her mental space is off. And with the twisties, they say to get over it, you literally have to go back and learn how to flip and twist like you were when you were 6, 5, and 6 years old. You have to learn from the beginning, learn the basics of it. It's a real mental disorder that happens to gymnasts. And if you don't understand that because you've never been in that gymnast space or you've never tried to understand, then that's what people come out, oh, she just soft, she just a quitter. You got losers who talk about she a quitter. Man, she didn't accomplish more. Hell, she accomplished more this year than all of you have in your lives. So seek some understanding before you open up your mouth, because you have no idea what it is to be a gymnast. And from the information that I'm reading, all gymnasts go through this. That's why a lot of them stop competing, because they realize that they put themselves at danger of killing themselves or severely injuring themselves because the mental space isn't there anymore. Like I say, you carrying the gymnastic team on your back and you're dealing with your own mental issues while you're trying not to kill yourself, flipping and twisting in the air. All right.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of them things where I think, because one of the things that makes all of the Olympic athletes so great is that they make what they do look easy. You watching them do all of that shit and you like, I can do that. No, you can't. No, you can't. Man, all I need is 6 months training, maybe 8 months, and no.
They've been doing this. They've been doing this their entire lives. You really think you can go out there in 6 to 8 months? Yeah, take your out of shape butt out there and watch you pull a hamstring.
Right, and it's not even right, because it's not even just gymnastics that I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about all of the Olympic sports, all of them, even handball. Those guys and those women, they've been doing that the bulk of their lives, training and doing and at that level, I would say almost all of the sports are hugely mental, 70-80% mental.
Yeah,
because all of them at that point have honed their bodies to damn near perfection. The only distinguishing thing between them is their mental state.
Right.
As they're competing.
When you get to that level, it's about how much more you want it than the other person, but that comes down to your mental level. Right.
Which is why the Olympics is, in my opinion, kind of like the perfect way to talk about the impact of mentality and mental health on sports. Because everybody out there is in prime physical conditioning for the sport that they play. But there's a huge difference between a lot of them, and a lot of that is mentality. Some of it is skill. We're not denying that skill is actually a factor, but a lot of it is mentality. So, like we were talking about before the show started, those athletes, and this is something that I know with track I talk to the parents about, but with all sports, this is something a lot of parents need to think about when they start talking about how their kids are going to go to the Olympics. It's expensive to go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
It's expensive to become a world-class athlete, and it doesn't pay very well.
It doesn't.
That's why all of those people talk about how supportive their families were. Because in order for them to be at that level, all of their siblings had to give up their dreams. Their mom, their dad, sometimes grandmas, grandpas, aunties, and uncles all had to give up their dreams to fund this child becoming this world-class athlete.
Yeah.
And that child can't pay them back.
Right. Unless the child can't pay them back unless they become they
gotta become a Simone Biles or Allison Felix,
Yeah, because and you got to get these endorsements. And like I was watching something, so like we were talking about earlier, Usain Bolt was on the EYL and talking about how, especially for Jamaica, that for the most part, these track and field events and stuff depending on which meet you at and where you compete, you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
So everything is coming from endorsements. And if you're not a popular person, you got to find a way to get endorsements. You got to find a way to get sponsored.
And the sponsorship deals are performance based. So if you're not winning, or at least not coming top 3, if you consistently 4th place, you might not be getting nothing from endorsements as well.
So if you're the average Olympian who's not popular, but you're good at what you do, but you are not popular, there is a financial strain which could cause more anxiety, and causing more anxiety could lead to depression and cause for that person to not be able to compete at the highest level because they worried about surviving.
I mean, there's a huge financial strain on being a world-class athlete that competes in Olympic sports.
So but that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. And I know I'm kind of going left with this, but I'm gonna bring it back. But like when we found out Sha'Carri couldn't compete and they replaced her with other black women, and then the black women didn't get any support by people who was mad and saying, hey, we got to stick up for black women, but they wasn't supporting black women. Well, how do you think that helps those women? How do you think those women feel? How do you think that could weigh on their mental health? Damn, I'm just out here. I'm black. I ain't do nothing wrong. I'm just out here competing, and y'all can't rock with me. And we'll say that we ride for our folk, but we don't 100% ride for our folk. But that stuff there leads to a decline in the other people's mental health.
Mm-hmm.
That's depression right there. Oh, damn. So, I mean, I'm doing all this, I'm sacrificing all this, and y'all don't care because I'm not popular. Oh, okay. We got to really look at ourselves and the things that we doing and how we claim to be supporting. I don't just support people you like or people you know. You got to support. So, yeah.
Yeah, but just to kind of try to loop it all back in, one of the things, like we said, was just the fact that the mental health aspect of it all, the strain and the stress, the trauma that we just saw. Right, the Olympics just ended 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, somewhere around there. I don't know, but we just saw strain and stress and all of this on all of these levels. And as a community, we couldn't respond to it appropriately because we're strained and stressed. We've kind of normalized mental disability. Where everybody go through that. That don't mean it's right. That don't mean that, it's cool. Well, if you're black in America, you should be stressed. So you just gotta learn how to deal with it.
Yeah. That's the ignorance, though. That's the ignorance. Because remember, everybody all of a sudden becomes an expert when need be, but not necessarily for themselves and can help themselves. But if you don't need help, then they become an expert to give you the help that you don't need. Yeah. But also looking at this outside of the Olympics, looking at Naomi Osaka. Naomi Osaka was fined by the French Open after not showing up to an interview and explaining to them that, hey, I'm dealing with severe anxiety. So she said she's a homebody. She's a introvert naturally. And she says she naturally has anxiety. And speaking in public, it heightens her anxiety. And doing the interviews and stuff heightens her anxiety. She has a closed circle. She like just be in a circle. That's comfortable for her. And it doesn't heighten her anxiety. So the French Open was mad that she didn't do interviews, and they was like, we're going to fine you. So she was like, well, I'm going to withdraw. And so they still at her like, hey, well, if you do that again, you don't do interviews, then we're going to keep finding you, and we may not invite you back to the event. And they're not even trying to basically hear what she's saying, that, hey, I'm dealing with mental health issues. I'm
Mm-hmm.
dealing with anxiety, and this heightens my anxiety and all these different things. And they're just like, well, we got an interview policy, and so you need to adhere to our interview policy. And if you don't, we're gonna make you adhere to our interview policy. And reading that my first thought was, this is why we need our own. This is exactly why we need our own, because these people don't care about these athletes like that. They just care about the money. They just care about the image. They just care about maintaining tradition and mainly keeping that money coming in. Because
Mm-hmm.
Naomi Osaka doing interviews, being as popular as she is, that brings in money. That's revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And they're finding her for trying to take care of her mental health. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, backlash and dumbass people. She quit. She this. She that. Because everybody's great until it's time to be great. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. It's just crazy that these young ladies are going through this. Like, mental health is real. We know it's real, but we treat it like it's real. And when I say we, I mean the world.
Mm-hmm.
You treat it like it's real. You only treat it like it's real when it affects you or somebody you love. But when there's other interest in there, it's not a real thing, and people just need to get over it. So
Mm-hmm.
so far, even the experts haven't found out how to just get over mental health issues. So.
Not because you can't, and this is one of the things, right? Like, because and I'll say it here. I'm struggling with PTSD and depression and a couple other things. And for a long time, the thought process was you could just wake up and decide to be something else. You know what I'm saying?
What you mean?
For a long time, because of the way I was raised and because of the people around me, for the majority of my childhood, the thought process was, if you're depressed, you can just wake up and make the decision not to be depressed.
Oh, okay.
If you have PTSD, unless you've been to a war zone, you can just make the decision not to be crazy. And it's not that simple. And I think people really need to understand it's not that simple, and it will keep getting worse until you get help. But right now, getting help for mental health problems doesn't mean that those problems are going to go away completely. What it means is that you'll have the skills to be able to deal with them appropriately.
Right.
When they come up. So it's not like going to a doctor's office where you have a cough and then they do something and now you don't have the cough no more. That could happen, but what more than likely is going to happen is you're going to keep having those problems less frequently, but when they do appear, you now have the tools to deal with them. But we got to start getting serious about understanding that those tools are necessary. They need to be taught. And mental health is not something that you can just decide that you don't have a problem with, and then the problems go away.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like we don't want to develop the tools to deal with mental health because that would add responsibility to
I can agree with that.
to either helping others or responsibility to fixing your own situation. And like you say, mental health doesn't go away. Like, let's, for real, black folk, like for real, especially black people who live in the hood and low income communities. We all see our people walking down the street just cussing out the air and cussing out whoever in the air. We see the people in our communities who dealing with mental health issues who don't have the means or don't know they have the means to get help. We see what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the problem is, especially with these three ladies, Naomi, Simone, and Sha'Carri, is people think that because they are successful at what they're doing and they have celebrity, people automatically assume, well, they are rich, they should be able to deal with this, or they're this and they're that. It's like they're human. Like people are with Sha'Carri. People are like, well, why did she smoke weed to deal with it? Do y'all know this will be her sophomore year in college?
Mm-hmm.
She fresh out the house. This would be her sophomore year in college. She's fresh out the house. What skills do you expect her to have? Like, come on, man. Like, we got to stop negating information for our thoughts and feelings. Like, God damn, let's stop doing that. Like,
absolutely.
because it's not helping. Then and then don't cheer for her when she come back now. If all y'all with the negativity and all y'all who against these women and all y'all who calling these women quitters, don't remember when they come back and they don't cheer for them then. Keep that same energy. Because they don't need you. Now, what they really need is a community that's supporting them and riding with them and not trying to judge them or not trying to play doctor or be the expert all of a sudden.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, we got to get our stuff together, man. Because the minute we're doing a horrible job of dealing. We're doing better than we was, but we're still doing a horrible job of dealing with mental health in our community.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess maybe we're doing better. I don't know. I would need to see numbers because anecdotal evidence tells me that we're not.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a huge change in our. I've seen where now people are saying it's okay to go get help, but outside of celebrities, you really don't see a lot of people going to get help. And then I know there's a resource issue there as well. Because mental health services can be expensive. So I get that angle as well. How do we make that? How do we make it cheaper?
I mean, that's gonna be up to government agencies, insurance agencies, because people trying to get paid. So, I mean, it's America. America's a capitalistic society. America ain't trying to make nothing cheap, and that's one of the issues with it. Like, it costs to be sick, whether, and when I say that, if you're not well, whether physically, mentally, spiritually, whatever, it costs in America. It does, and that's unfortunate.
You think there's any way we could create some sort of clinic?
I mean, a clinic. So, like the one I work with, like a federally qualified health center, a federally qualified health center. So, like my job, we provide mental health, but we only have maybe 1 or 2 mental health specialists. And then other than that, we have to refer out because, you know, with it being the FQAC, we get money, but it's on a certain amount of money. So let's just be really come down to funding. And the black community, we don't have the money, so we got to rely on the government.
Cool. You think we could get maybe more of them would be willing to do pro bono work?
We'll have some. How many? How many is that? Some I don't know, but I do believe we'll have some. I do believe there's a good number of good-hearted people who will be willing to do some work. But what that number will be, I don't know, and will that number be suffice? I don't know. But it's something. I mean, only thing to it, we just got to try it.
Well, we're gonna work on that. That's what we're gonna do.
You're gonna work on that. I mean, that's the only thing I think of is to try it. I mean, you know how I feel about people, man, and especially in America. So, American people has let us down a lot. So, yeah, yeah.
I'm saying, because I feel worse.
Yeah, I'm way more optimistic than you are.
So, but I do think this is one of them things that I feel like we need. You know what I'm saying? And I would be willing to put in the work to try to do something. So,
something for ourselves. I mean, I really do think we need to have something that's funded by us.
Absolutely.
But we got to be serious about it, and we got to be serious about keeping it going and growing it without government aid, without the aid of others. Because once you get others into it and they put their money in, they can now tell you how to do what you need to do.
Absolutely.
So, hey man. So look, all in all, our message is, for one, let's do a better job of actually supporting our people. Let's be less of fans and more of supporters, like humanized supporters, and less fandom, because that's two different things. Let's really take mental health serious. Let's stop categorizing our empathy for people based off of their celebrity and their income levels. Let's stop doing that. Let's take it for real. Like, just because a person is always on social media and on TV, don't mean that they not real people like we are. They real people like we are too. Mental health is real. No matter if you are wealthy or poor, mental health is real, and it can affect all of us. All of us. You're not special. You are not special. So let's stop treating it like it's some fly by night stuff, and let's stop following narratives. Like I keep saying, let's do real research to stop being intellectually lazy and really learn what we need to learn to uplift ourselves and our community. You can do it. You know you can. So I'm Joseph Ward. He's Patrick Irvin. Freedom Train podcast series, www.freedomtrainradio.com. Remember, we on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Radio Public, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and whatever other favorite podcast platform you on. We on there too. Peace.